So what's the rationale for Trump's tariffs? The official rationale offered by the White House is that it's punishment for failing to stop the flow of illegal immigrants, illegal drugs and money laundering in the case of Mexico and China. In the case of Canada, Trump has stated that it's retaliation for Canadian tariffs, which already exist on certain US goods. As far as economic objectives go, however, there's really two major goals here, I think. One is to boost US manufacturing production and employment, bring jobs back to the United States, and the other is to reduce the trade deficit by restricting imports. So let's look at the theoretical basis for that. Now, this is not going to be a description of reality per se. We use a theoretical tool, which to some extent helps us to get a handle on how this would work. So the market mechanism here would be along the following lines. A tariff is imposed which increases the price of imported goods into the United States. Now, according to the law of demand, when the price of a good goes up, the quantity demanded will fall to some extent or other. Now, the immediate effect of that is to reduce the amount of imports being purchased within the United States. So imports fall relative to exports, and that, all other things remaining equal, reduces the trade deficit to some extent. Of course, we're assuming here that the US dollar doesn't appreciate, for example. That would mess things up because the appreciation of the US dollar would actually make imports cheaper. And the other effect is that it increases the local supply of the product that would otherwise be imported. Local producers will expand their supply up to the new higher price, which is now being charged for the particular imported product. And foreign investors may choose to relocate operations to the United States, also increasing the supply locally of the product. So this leads to higher employment. More production within the sector leads to higher employment in that sector. It doesn't necessarily mean employment overall increases, but certainly for the sector where there are firms competing with imports. So let's look at our theoretical tool. Right? Not a description of reality, it's a tool, to see how this would work. So we've got local demand for this particular product, whatever it happens to be. Let's say the world market price is set at $700 a tonne, say it's steel. Now, local suppliers are able to, or it's profitable for them, to supply up to the point of 50 million tonnes per year. These are obviously funny numbers. It's not serious, real numbers. It's just to illustrate the point. So if local supply is 50 million tonnes, but demand within the United States is for 150 million tonnes, then that shortfall is made up for by imports. This is the imported steel. Okay, what if we then have the 25% tariff imposed? That pushes the price up within the United States for steel to $875 a tonne. So, as we can see, for the local demand, there's a contraction in demand. It falls as per the law of demand, but local supply expands up to the new higher price. And we can see that when that happens, there's increased supply. In order to produce more, firms will have to employ more people in the sector to do it. So employment in the sector rises, production and employment rises, but also the price is higher. It also reduces the gap between local supply, which is now 100 million tonnes, and the total demand within the US economy for steel, which is, I don't know, what's that, 130 million tonnes, roughly. So we can see the gap between them, between local supply and demand, has decreased, so the amount that will be imported has decreased as well, which reduces the trade deficit. There's essentially the rationale, the economic rationale anyway, behind the tariff.